Guys, I think you just caught me on a good day. As it happens, I'm on a kick. I'm on a kick today. Guys, we're doing it. We are going to program, okay? I've gone through 3 videos now. You've been waiting for so long. It's time. Okay. Here we go. Now, I'm going to be using the one and the only, the Notepad++, but I'm going to Yeah, I think that's big enough. That's good. We'll go with that. Okay, gang, here's how this is going to work, okay? I'm going to show you how to program your very first program. I've got everything way zoomed in here. You probably don't need it that zoomed in, but here we go. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, in the command line just for fun, I'm going to say new item, and we're going to call this hello underscore world. Whenever you make the file names for these things, I highly recommend that you never put spaces in them. You're going to have a bad time. It's going to make your life miserable, okay? So we've got our, this is kind of a mess, but that's okay. We have our hello world.py. Now I'm going to go ahead and open it over here. Okay, here it is. We got our blank text file. You can notice we can type in things. And the beautiful thing about Notepad++, is if you haven't noticed about these text editors, is that they have what's called syntax highlighting. Certain words like for and as and if and elif and print and I don't even know. The point is they have this nice coloring to them so that normal text looks like that, but then you have this nice highlighting so you know the important bits of the code that are for specific things. So we are going to write our very first program, and as is the tradition for many programming languages, this is how it's going to work. It's very straightforward. What you're going to do is type print. You're going to put an open parentheses, and if you might have to put a close parentheses. Mine automatically gives me a close parentheses. And you're going to do an open and close quotes. You can actually use double quotes or single quotes. They both work for this purpose, but I'm going to use double quotes this time, and I'm going to say hello world. Hello world, and I'm going to put an exclamation mark because I like that. Hello world is the classic first program that every user learns how to do. You teach your computer. I mean, the first thing you learn when you learn a programming language is you learn how to write "Hello World" and have that print to the screen. And we're going to show you how that works. Okay. So I got this. You'll see that up in the corner here, it's got this little red icon. If I save it, it'll turn blue, meaning it's saved. Just make sure you're keeping track of if your stuff is saved. I can't tell you how many bugs I've had where I updated it, nothing changed, couldn't figure out what was going on. Turns out I hadn't saved it. So just make sure you're saving all the time. Maybe they'll come up with one eventually that it's like it saves all the time. Okay, meanwhile, we're over here in the command line, and I'm going to type Python hello world.py. Behold. Boom. Hello world. It's done. That's all there is to it. All right. Thanks for watching this video. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about a few other things here because I want to explain what's going on here. I zoomed out a little bit for the sake of everything. We're going to talk about this stuff. Now, if you're following along in the book, you should have seen this stuff in here. This should be very straightforward. Now, you'll notice I've done a few things here, right? I've added in this code here that says hello world.py. You'll notice there's this little hash symbol at the beginning, or it's called an octothorpe if you want to be really technical. But it's a hash symbol. I'll call it a hash most of the time. The hash symbol tells Python, do not pay attention to this line of code. Just skip over it and pretend it's not there. You know what else Python does? If you ever have a blank line like this, it also skips over it. It doesn't really care. That's why I said I skipped a line in code here. So this is kind of nice. And we just, we typed out the words twinkle, twinkle, little star, and you'll notice we skipped another line, and it's just kind of a nice way of organizing your code. Like, for instance, if I wanted to organize this a little better, I would get rid of that line, and I would say, oh, look, that is the lyrics to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So just so in my mind it makes all makes sense. So here's a little song, and that's just a way you could organize it. Now, it is entirely arbitrary how you organize code and how many blank lines you have, although there are some conventions that we'll go over in a later time. The important thing to remember now is that, first off, the hash symbol, we're going to talk more about comments later, but the hash symbol means skip this line, it'll skip blank lines, and then the way this program works is Python literally just starts here and just goes down the list and executes everything in order. So we're going to go try this out. Boom. And you'll notice that even though we skipped lines here, they did not get skipped here because Python is designed that every time you run a print statement, it just makes one new line and then it just goes to the next line and does whatever it's supposed to do. If we wanted to put in new lines, I suppose we could do something like this. We could say print just empty quotes, and that'll put in a new line like that, and we'll try that out. Oh, look at that! It skipped a line between "Here's a little song" and "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star." So if you wanted to get really crazy, I suppose you could do that in all these cases, and it would end up looking a lot like the code. Now, this is not the best way of doing it. We're going to go over much better ways of doing it, but that is a good start here, okay? Now, I would like you to play around with this a little bit, because one of the first things I want you to learn, and one of the things I want to get out of the way right now, is what happens if you get something like this. You know, suppose I get rid of one of those things. What happens? Ooh, look at this. Python's trying to help me here. It's like, oh, file, hello world Python, line 15. Okay, there's line 15. Okay, here's line 15. I found line 15. Syntax error. Unexpected EOF end of file while parsing. You'll notice it has a little arrow here to show what the line looks like. Here is what I would like you to get from this, okay? When you write code, you are going to make mistakes. The computer is kind of like, as I've heard said, an idiot savant that will do exactly what you say and interpret everything perfectly. And you must remember that the computer is just doing what you're telling it to. And sometimes you're going to get errors. And that's okay. There is nothing wrong with the fact that I have a syntax error here. Okay? I feel like a lot of programmers, they get into this and they get very frightened of the fact that they're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes every time I write code. In fact, I have to rewrite the same code three or four times before I get it right. But in this case, I'm just showing you one example of how you can get a syntax error, and we'll go over all the different errors at a later time. But this is the first type of error that I want you to follow. Basically, syntax error. Okay. Unexpected end of file while parsing. Now what that means is it was going along and it looks at this and it says, okay, print, what am I supposed to do? Print whatever's in between the parentheses. Okay, what's in between the parentheses? Okay, here's the first parenthesis. Okay, this is what's in between them. Wait, I got to the end of the file. There's no other parenthesis. There's a missing parenthesis. Where the heck is the parenthesis? And it'll freak out and give you this sort of error. So if you'll notice, if you put the parenthesis back in, save it, and rerun, it works just fine. Now, you'll notice same thing happens if I do it up here. You'll get a slightly different error. Oh, look. Okay, check this out. So notice how it goes to the next line, because that's how the Python interpreter sort of works. It goes along. Okay, I found a close parenthesis. Open parenthesis. It is perfectly fine with the fact that you put a parenthesis down here. You see how those parentheses are highlighted as red? That means they match. Python's fine with that. It does not have any trouble with that. But if you run it, it's very confused because it says, oh, sorry, I didn't say that. That's the same error as before. It got mad at you because the way it's parsing, it says, okay, you can't put a print statement inside of a print statement. That doesn't make any sense. So anyway, suffice it to say that when you when you do the print statement just basically says, okay, write what's ever in between the parentheses and put a new line and go to the next line. And that's how it works. So that's basically everything I wanted to show you. I'm just going to fix this up just for completion's sake. This is your first program. Think about this and go over some of the exercises, because there's a few in there I've talked. See if you can play around with this. See how many ways you can break it. This will help you get used to the idea of errors and trying to understand what they mean and how they work. And I use this specifically one because it's a little bit confusing if you just look at it. What on earth is happening here and why this is doing what it's doing? So if you can figure out why all these errors are happening, that'll be really helpful to you going forward. So big things though: how to do the print statement. Don't be afraid of errors. Figure out how the errors are happening. Play around with this, have some fun with it, and that's really all there is to this lesson. Actually, not much here, but it's your first program. Congratulations, you've now taken your first step into a larger world, and yeah, that's all I've got for now. If you like the video, please consider hitting that like button, and also consider subscribing if you like this content. We'll see you in the next video.